Welcome back to another explainer. Man, I am so incredibly excited to unpack today's material with you. We're looking at a cosmic intersection so profound it literally demands we look at the universe through two entirely different lenses. On one hand, you've got the cold, clinical, flawlessly calculated silence of the sapphire matrix, and on the other, the heavy, bleeding tragedy of the blazing abyss. It's an absolutely stunning piece of grim, dark Gothic world building, and honestly a brilliant way to explore some incredibly deep philosophical concepts. Let's get right into it.
Okay, let's dive into this. We're looking at a mythic collision between the cold arithmetic of the Sapphire Forge and the fiery, eternal tragedy of the blazing abyss. We're basically dealing with the core conflict of our fable here, right? An unstoppable force meeting an absolutely immovable object. You've got the Sapphire Forge, a domain built entirely on cold arithmetic and absolute logic, but colliding head-on with that is the Crimson Dragon, descending straight from the blazing abyss, representing an eternal, fiery tragedy. It's a literal clash of elements, sapphire light against crimson flame, but more importantly, it's a massive clash of ideologies. Think about it. How exactly does a system perfectly designed for absolute silence process an existence defined by loud, weeping tragedy?
Section 1. The Silent Sapphire Matrix.
To truly grasp the weight of this collision, we really need to understand the baseline, the original, undisturbed state of this universe. Let's put on our clinical lens for a second to examine the architecture here. The Sapphire Matrix isn't just a place, it's a forced utopia. And if you think about the philology, utopia literally derives from the Greek for no place, which hits the nail on the head for its ultimate goal. It's a domain defined by absolute stillness and rigid geometric symmetry. Its entire cosmic function is to secure the ultimate mass-energy balance. It does this through a vast grid of silent blue stars, which act as the definitive record of concluded lives. The Matrix provides exactly that, a sapphire certainty that delivers the ultimate mercy of nothingness. Because sometimes, erasing painful memories seems like the only mercy left.
And this brilliantly illustrates the massive philosophical contrast at the heart of this universe. On one side, we have clinical order, geometric symmetry, and total aesthetic detachment. It's a system fiercely ensuring the arithmetic of the overman remains totally uncontaminated by the subjective, messy nature of human experience. But encroaching right up against it are the chaotic alternatives, the uncanny forest, and the distant red room. These are realms of verdant corruption, narrative inertia, and a loud, weeping existence. The arithmetic of the Forge was specifically engineered to solve this eternal tragedy of biological life. It's the ultimate cure for the disease of feeling.
So how exactly does the Forge enforce this rigid order? Well, it does it through its primary agent, the Jester of Sapphire Light. The Jester operated with total aesthetic detachment, treating biological existence as just data, pure mass input to be solved. His method was the Z-pinch plasma touch, which is a specialized execution of kenosis. Kenosis is literally the Greek concept for voluntary emptying. The Jester's whole job was to completely strip away the crushing weight of a person's name and identity, achieving what the system coldly calls industrial finality. To the Matrix, biological life was just a math problem to be solved, wiped perfectly clean into absolute silence.
Section 2. The Spirit of Negation.
Let's see how this builds into the much deeper architecture of our explainer. You see, the Jester wasn't just acting on a whim, he was serving a primal cosmic force that maps absolutely perfectly onto Johann Gottlieb Fichte's philosophical dialectic. As the thesis, we have the absolute living ink. This is persistent biological identity, concentrated sorrow, the fierce, loud insistence on simply existing. But opposing it is the antithesis, the absolute not I, or the lunar spirit. This is the ultimate mathematical no. It represents the clinical demand to be stilled and erased completely. The entire Sapphire Matrix was built from the ground up to champion this antithesis over the incredibly messy reality of the thesis.
The lunar spirit is really defined by an active hunger. It's a force uniquely designed to pull loud, weeping memories down into silver depths. Because unlike biological life that desperately, frantically wants to be remembered, this spirit demands absolute stillness. The Jester functioned as the primary agent of this spirit, essentially acting as the laughter that confirms. He eagerly smashed outmoded moralities to resolve what the Forge calls kinetic friction. It was a pristine, totally detached system, well, right up until a massive outside variable was introduced.
Section 3. The Crimson Dragon's Truth.
This brings us to the absolute pivotal shift in our explainer. The cold, clinical blue radiance of the Matrix is about to be completely shattered. The Crimson Dragon descends from the blazing abyss, and it doesn't just attack, it reveals. It introduces a brutal litmus test of honest truth. The rhythmic thud of the beast's steps acts as a vibrational frequency that literally strips away all illusions. All those broken vows and the hidden kinetic friction that the jester genuinely thought he had erased, the dragon forces it all to manifest. That total aesthetic detachment the jester relied on is violently ripped away by the sheer, crushing weight of this inescapable truth.
Now, what's really interesting about this slide is this concept of 100% unassimilated voltage. The arithmetic of the Overman, the actual math that ran the matrix, relied on assimilating absolutely everything into nothingness. But the dragon's truth forces the jester to suddenly confront his own identity. The jester realizes with horror that he is the strongest cage ever built, and all that kinetic friction he thought he had successfully deleted suddenly manifests as entirely visible, extremely violent voltage. He literally can no longer hide behind his pristine equations.
The impact of this realization is just profound. The dragon brings the agonizing reality of the blazing abyss and the distant red room right to the jester's doorstep. This introduces an incredibly heavy moral weight that fundamentally unravels his original clinical purpose. The deeply painful realization here, and I think we can all relate to this on some level, is that deep sorrows, concentrated tragedy, and biological insistence simply cannot be calculated away. They demand to be felt. The jester realizes that the silence he enforced wasn't peace at all. It was just a cage.
Section 4. The Verdant Corruption. As that clinical purpose completely unravels, we witness a genuinely terrifying synthesis. We see this breakdown observed directly through the perspective of the last thinker. As the entire system collapses, the last thinker completely abandons his physical interface with the stilled matrix. To maintain celestial oversight of the jester's tragic, chaotic descent, he actually adopts a massive arachnid form. He watches from above as the crisp, perfect sapphire light flickers and violently bleeds into a sickly, pulsing emerald, officially ushering in the grim reality of the Green Chamber.
And this brings us to the verdant corruption itself, which serves as the ultimate gateway to the uncanny forest. The jester is completely overtaken by a very dark green energy. His once clinical blue eyes now glow with his terrifying corruptive emerald fire. Instead of being the necessary fire that neatly resolves souls into absolute stillness, he transforms into a gaping maw, a corrupted sanctuary for the exact chaos, ink, and biological insistence that he was originally programmed to dismantle. The irony here is just staggering. He essentially becomes the very chaos he was meant to destroy.
So the crucial point is that the honest truth delivered by the dragon didn't set the jester free at all. It completely broke him. It exposed him as an internal cage, turned him into a pulsing vessel for concentrated sorrow, and massively accelerated his transition into a gaping maw of internal consciousness. He is pulled entirely away from the beautiful geometric symmetry of the matrix. He is now this corrupted, sickeningly green bridge standing right between the silent sapphire utopia he once served and the fiery tragedy of the dragon.
Section 5. The Cynical Synthesis.
We finally reach the ultimate cynical synthesis of our Fichtean dialectic. Nihilism triumphant. The thesis of biological life and the antithesis of absolute erasure have collided head-on, and the result is absolutely devastating. Now, you might think the dragon bringing honest truth would be a huge triumph for the human spirit, right? But in this grim universe, honesty is not a virtue. The really horrific realization is that even honest history is just mass input. The truth is merely a much more sophisticated form of thermodynamic noise. When a soul is finally emptied, even an honest, perfectly finished soul leaves absolutely nothing behind but a discarded shadow.
Which leaves us with a final, truly haunting question. Is the honest truth a path to freedom, or is it just more flammable fuel for the abyss? The dragon's steps proved beyond a shadow of a doubt that truth cannot be ignored, but they also proved that truth definitely doesn't save you. In the violent clash between the cold sapphire matrix and the agonizing, blazing abyss, the truth was simply a more flammable fuel for the fire. It burned right through the jester's clinical detachment and left behind nothing but verdant corruption. It really makes you wonder, when we finally strip away all of our own illusions, are we actually freeing ourselves, or are we just feeding our own internal abyss? Thank you so much for joining me on this deep dive in today's explainer. I'll see you next time.